This podcast is brought to you by Knowledge at Wharton. For more information, please visit knowledge.wharton.upenn.edu.
Honeywell is a $35 billion company in the multi-industry space, so we have a number of different businesses. I work in Honeywell Aerospace. We're about $13 billion in size. We have probably the most diverse aerospace portfolio out there. We serve air transport and regional customers. We have business and general aviation customers, as well as a large defense and space business. And our products range from gas turbine engines, turbofans, turboprops, and auxiliary power units that power everything from tanks to airplanes, business jets, and helicopters. We also have cockpit avionics, surveillance systems, inertial navigation systems. So we're very diverse, and it makes it a very exciting business to work on strategy. Well, one of the benefits of that wide range of products and services we sell, as well as the number of customers we have, both domestically and globally, is that diversification really does help us. The diversification helps in a couple of ways. One is there's a 50-year history of defense and commercial markets running countercyclical. So that helps us quite a bit because as some businesses are going up, others are coming down, and we can balance that. The benefit of that is that we get to move our people around so we can shift them back and forth so we get more efficient resource use, especially for folks like engineers. It also means that our manufacturing and supply chain can be a bit more stable than if we were in only one of those areas. So the good thing about that diversification is when you run into cycles like the one we're about to go through or starting to go through, the amount that we're going to move is going to be less, and we can shift resources back and forth and grow experience growth in key businesses. I think what we're trying to do is not take anything that's drastic or short-term oriented, really continue to think about the long run, but be very prudent. And the trick in this kind of market is to make sure that you have accurate forecasts of what's going on. You stay extremely close to the customer to know what's actually happening to their demand, that you understand not just what your customer is saying, but what the underlying trends are driving the demand in the market. And as long as you can track your supply chain to what's happening in the market pretty accurately, then you don't have to take huge drastic changes. Typically, the big ones you read about are when someone's reacting as opposed to trying to stay ahead of it. So for us, it's mostly about staying ahead of it, really understanding it. It's a very long cycle business we're in, and that helps quite a bit. And so within aerospace, I think we're just trying to stay ahead of what's going on in the aftermarket, which is where the airplane flight hours are, in the OEM side, which is where they're building aircraft or platforms, as well as all the programs that we have in the defense and space world. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the new administration. I think one of the things is they are definitely taking a hard look at the defense budget, figuring out where they're going to spend money, what programs are going to do well. Our mantra is pretty straightforward there. One is we're trying to make sure that we've got programs that offer very high value to the warfighter. Soldier-centric, as we call it, means the things that are going to support the soldier and are closest to the soldier are the things that are going to stay funded, and we need to continue. There's also a global aspect to this too. So programs like Joint Strike Fighter, which are 9 countries involved, it replaces a lot of aircraft. It offers tremendous value to all the services. You may see some changes in that, but it'll be harder for that kind of a program to see huge impacts. So again, diversification really helps us quite a bit. Being as global as we are helps quite a bit, so that it's not a business that's 100% dependent on the U.S. We're actually quite global in a number of our markets. So it will have an effect on our defense business, I'm sure. It's probably a little bit further out there also in timing because, it's like I said, it's a long cycle industry. It takes a while to kind of move the direction. So for us, it's making sure we're on the right programs, making sure we execute the programs that we're on so that they don't run over budget and over cost. Those are the programs that are going to see the most pressure. One of the things that's important to do is make sure that you're not making all your decisions in individual stovepipes. Because if you do it that way, what tends to happen is a business that isn't going to have a lot of growth opportunities, or because of the competitive nature, or because it's older, declining technology, might actually be where a lot of the profit is generated, right? Typically things that have been in the market for a while and that we're servicing over the long run have very high aftermarket revenues. If you took all of that profit and plowed it back into that business, then, and so if you're organized in a way that causes that to happen, what can happen is that you're actually not able to fund the higher growth, more innovative opportunities. And in aerospace, I would say we have a tremendous number of innovation opportunities. Our challenge is not thinking up new ideas. We have tons of great ideas. We actually have 30 to 50% more ideas and opportunities than we actually have a capacity or willingness to fund. So the trick for us is making sure that we actually look across the whole business and make sure we're funding those things that are truly innovative, truly differentiable, and create the most value for our customers, and not just letting a business that's generating a lot of cash fund itself, but have to think about overall. So we have a large process where we actually go through, currently doing this right now, there's about 750 individual opportunities that we're evaluating for what we're going to fund and how we're going to take it forward. So you have champions for each one of those that present their ideas and what it would cost and what the benefits are and what kind of value they're creating. And we have a process of going through and evaluating which ones we want to fund. I think you have to start with the customer, and you have to start with the concept of value. And so we spend a lot of time forcing our teams to not just explain, well, here's how much it's going to cost. If I add some, margin to it, here's what what I should charge the market for. To think about incremental improvements, but to rather start with what are the customer's needs? What are problems that you're trying to solve for that customer? What's their next best alternative to what you're offering them? And how do you create value? And value to us is not a nebulous concept. It's three things. It's one, it's for a specific customer segment. So it's not just general for the market, but you're talking about specific customers. Two, it's measured in currency. And that doesn't have to be dollars, but it has to be currency. So it's not something nebulous, but truly measured in currency. And three, it's always relative to the next best alternative. Sometimes that next best alternative is do nothing, keep what they have. Sometimes it's a competitor with their offer. And sometimes it's a future competitor that might be emerging. So you have to be very careful to make sure you're not just creating value, but only to find out that the next best alternative is just as good. So we really try to hone that concept and make sure that we're thinking that way when we develop our new products and services. Managing global organization is truly a challenge. And if you think about many aerospace companies are organized in some kind of matrix, right? You have to pick customer or product or geography or function or some combination. And generally, you end up with a bit of a matrix where you have one or two primary and the others have to work across that. So we've recently set up a global structure where we have a president in Asia Pacific who sits in Shanghai, and a president of our what we call EMEA, which is Europe, Middle East, Africa, and India. And so we've created a virtual organization there. I actually have people who report to me who are in our Switzerland office as well as in Prague. I've got people in Shanghai, but also in Mexico and a couple of locations, as well as folks around the U.S. So it is difficult to manage across that. I think that the key is to make sure that people's roles and responsibilities are clear and that people know each other. I mean, the simplest thing is our CEO likes to say that if you don't know somebody, if you haven't met them, you probably have a bit of distrust. If you know them and you've met them and you've talked to them, you tend to have a bias towards trusting them. So part of what you got to do is connect people, get them to know folks, and in a matrix as complicated as we've created, it's important that you know who to pick the phone up to and who to call. How do you create a virtual team that crosses those boundaries and actually works together? And I think we've got some great success stories in Europe as well as in Asia that are working very well across those boundaries.
For more business news and analysis from Knowledge at Wharton, please visit knowledge.wharton.upenn.edu.